What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Served on the Rocks, powered by Fathom Realty and Keller Williams downtown. We are here at the Rouge Wine and Bourbon Bistro down in Greenwood Village, our beautiful sponsor. And as always, my name is Charlie Sardelli, and I'm here with
Jameson Amros.
And we have an awesome episode for you guys today. We reached down deep into the depths of bourbon land and pulled out one of the best barrel sellers, barrel selectors in the country. Sitting here with us today, and he's going to tell us kind of everything about barrels, what he does, why barrels are expensive, why they're used, how they're used, stuff like that. So for all of our real estate watchers, this episode is going to take a little bit of a turn. We're going to be talking all about bourbon, whiskey, and barrels on today's episode. So if you're here for real estate, I'm sorry, but stay tuned to get some awesome information around barrels. So
you could live in a barrel.
You could.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
There's enough room.
So why don't I'm going to go ahead and pass it off. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Noah Steinberger. I work for Kentucky Bourbon Barrel. Super generic name, but that's what we do.
Straight to the point.
Yeah, we're very blunt with it. But yeah, so I work at a used barrel cooperage. So we buy back all the empty barrels from the distilleries in the U.S. and then refurbish them and resell them. But then our parent company, Independent Stave Company, or ISC Barrels, they make all the new oak barrels. So that's the hat. My boss is going to get mad at me for not wearing the Kentucky Bourbon Barrel hat, but need some more hats, boss.
I love it.
Yeah.
This is me crying out for help.
Yeah.
More hats.
Yeah.
And guys, on this episode, while we're going through talking, we actually kind of have a unique setup on this episode. He was very kind enough, if you guys can see on camera, we have 4 different bottles that he muled for us.
Yeah.
While he's visiting
Those
here.
damn tariffs. We could
Yeah.
And honestly, we could even touch on that and see if that's going to affect anything in the industry.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know?
That'd be a good thing to talk about, actually.
But what we're going to do is we're kind of going to do a tasting while we're talking about the topic. So basically, we're going to drink through all 4 of these bottles here. And the bottles, for those who aren't on video, you want to break down the bottles that we have?
Yeah, so I don't know, it's Angel's Envy, which I call kind of like the gateway to bourbon, to be honest. It's such an easy drink in bourbon.
It is, yeah.
So it's Angel's Envy 2020 release, the cask strength that was finished. I mean, they always, I think, finish in port wine barrels, but this is the cask strength. And then we have a Hirsch cask strength as well. That was actually finished in cognac barrels, Hind cognac, which we have a bottle of that as well, which is what we'll probably finish with. And then next to it is actually a Baker's single barrel rye, high proof rye. So it's probably, I think, a 95 rye.
Yeah, okay.
Typically when you see a high proof. But so I've had all of them except for the Baker's. So I'm looking forward to trying that.
Yeah, Angel's Envy was one of the first ones that I started with.
Yeah.
Back in the day. It was just the Angel's Envy standard, and I had it and was like, I can drink bourbon.
I was going to say, Buffalo Trace was my intro.
Yeah, I think I didn't, honestly, guys, it's kind of silly. I don't think I started drinking bourbon until I actually moved to Louisville, Kentucky.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was
Well, then you
kind of
had to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
so
you have to.
on that note, give us a little bit of background. How did you get into such an awesome position? Give us a little bit of how you got there.
Yeah, it's a question I kind of get a lot from some of my people I run into. So just kind of fell into it. Was just unemployed, and a friend of mine at the time offered me a job to come work for him and sell wine barrels and whiskey barrels to brewers here in Colorado, because I grew up in Denver. And so I started doing that. So really cutting my teeth on actually selling barrels to brewers for all the barrel-aged stouts, the sours, the wine barrel sours, etc. Didn't know jack shit about it.
Right.
It's not like you go to school for this. It's like you kind of have to be in the industry or in the area.
Right.
Like, to know really about wine barrels or bourbon barrels or whatever, you got to kind of be in Napa or Kentucky, right? Or Cognac or wherever it is, because it's such a heavy industry in those areas. There are schools for you to go to, but they don't really tap into the barrel piece. Because typically to become like a barrel expert, traditionally, you would become an actual tradesman, one of the ancient trades out there of coopering barrels. They also share a similarity to actually shipbuilders.
Right.
Because it's all about bending the stave, making it waterproof, right?
Right.
Sorry, I'm hitting this mic here.
You're good.
But so yeah, I kind of fell into it here. Just got this buddy of mine needed some help, and then I started doing that for about from 2012 to 2017 here, and I got a job offer from my current company boss out in Louisville, Kentucky Bourbon Barrel, because we were buying barrels from them.
Yeah.
And then essentially flipping them, rebrokering them. And so I've been with them for 8+ years now, 9 almost 9 years.
That's amazing. You know, it's so funny. We had they had an event here at the Rouge actually last year, and the master taster for Old Forester was here, and we were on the patio. And it's so funny to me that her as well. She was just doing tours, like whiskey tours, and out of nowhere she got a job offer, and they were like, "Hey, you've been doing this for a while. Do you want to be our master taster?" And she was like, "What?" Yeah. And it's funny because I asked her the same exact thing, like, "This is a dream job. How the hell did you get this?" Yeah. She was like, "Just drink bourbon."
Yeah.
just drink bourbon. Be in the area.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things, It's not necessarily what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And then also just kind of who you network and run around with. So, again, I just never had this in my future projection of life of what I was going to do with my job or career, but it's one of those things. It's a fun thing. I look forward to doing it. I work with a lot of cool people.
Yeah.
Like you said, the master tasters, master blenders, the head distillers, master distillers, and not just here in the States, but globally, because the majority of the barrels that I sell, that we, inspect and service, go out to Japan, Ireland, Scotland, the Caribbean, for the rum, Mexico for the tequila, down to cachaça in Brazil, pisco in Peru. Even hot sauce companies.
Wow. I've actually seen some hot sauces like finished in bourbon barrels.
Yeah, all Tabasco is bourbon barrels.
Really?
Yep.
That's fun fact.
I had no idea.
Fun fact, yep. And then there's
all Tabasco is in bourbon barrels. That's insane.
Wow, that's wild.
There's soy sauce.
You're talking about like the standard Tabasco.
All of it's
really?
Yeah, out on an island in Louisiana.
It's crazy.
They get packed with salt.
Really?
Insane,
Dude.
dude.
I don't know how much salt they pack on these damn things, but it's wild. Yeah.
That's incredible.
So they encase it in salt. The entire barrel is encased in salt. Does it just keep it dry?
I think it's to help. I don't know. I haven't inquired more about that, but there's like a documentary or some kind of episode out there on
wild,
it.
That's
dude.
awesome. Already within the first 10 minutes, dropping some cool insider information.
Well, it's crazy because you think, obviously we deal with bourbon all the time, and if you go to the bar and you pick out I want to pour this, that there's just an entire secondary market of just the barrels.
Just the barrel.
And then from there, you go from barrels of whiskey to obviously and then Tabasco.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
Like, why not?
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Everything is better in a barrel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
for the most part. Yeah,
for the most part, everything's better in a barrel.
Well, and it's one thing that I do want to talk about today with you, because we do have the what is it? Cognac barrel again, like you said. The Hirsch is in Cognac barrel.
Finished in Cognac,
I want to kind of talk about that a little, because I feel that this has been something that, and I don't want to say a gimmick, but this has been something that bourbon and whiskey companies have been doing to try and separate themselves and add some different flavors that you wouldn't get normally.
Right.
But some don't do it correctly.
Right.
So I'd love to kind of
They get
touch on
wild
that.
with it.
Exactly.
Kind of like going with like what the craft brewers were doing with a lot of the adjuncts and just what does Weldworks do? I love Weldworks. But it's like taco pastry stout or something like that. It's like, guys, like that works in the brewing realm. But there was I don't know, I can't remember the distillery name, but there was somebody that was simply buying, juice and then literally adding flavoring to it. And it's like caramel frappuccino bourbon. It's like, it's such a select market that's really appealing to.
Absolutely.
And we don't talk to that market. No.
Right.
Well, no. I was going to
We
say
don't associate with them.
So I was going to say we actually had a company on here. I work with them for videography. They're called the Whiskey Cartel.
Okay.
And they're a smaller bourbon company out of Colorado. But the way that they do it is after the bourbon's done in the barrel sitting, they then take the concentrate, like the actual juice from it, and let it marry in the barrel. Then they filter it.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was incredible because I went to a couple tastings with them for content, and it was 100%. I'm of the thing like flavored. Like I'm not drinking cinnamon Jack Daniels or
Fireball.
maple. Yeah, whatever. I don't want to drink that. That's not whiskey or bourbon. But the way that they did it, it makes the bourbon forward, then complemented by the fruit flavor.
That's good.
And they have a banana one.
Oh wow.
That one blew my mind.
What is it? Yeah, there's that banana. Dana White's or Joe Rogan, the Howler Monkey.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's just like but that's the thing. Like people, that's kind of the interesting piece though too with the finished goods, right? Because I'm on the supply chain side, the production side, but on the finished goods side, what's really selling and what people are really buying is the flavored stuff.
Right.
Ready to drink, already made. They're there are people like us that truly appreciate the traditional
Yeah.
bourbon profiles, and there's the traditionalists, but then you have the general populace that's just really like, oh, I want that banana whiskey.
That's awesome. See,
You
and,
know?
and the reason I say
Screwball,
that is
like the
because
peanut
there's
butter whiskeys.
Yeah.
there's such a parallel. My buddy is he runs Sano Gardens, one of the concentrate companies out here for marijuana, and it's so funny you say that because it's they face the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody that comes out here for tourism, they just want the banana strawberry mixer, but
Right.
And it's so funny to think of because like connoisseurs, like I don't consider us connoisseurs, but like people who
I think
enjoy it.
87
Purists?
episodes later, I'm pretty sure we're getting
Yeah,
pretty
but
damn
like,
close.
people like genuinely don't. They just want that quick access.
Yes.
and that's wild. So what I want to do is we're gonna start off with the bakers, right? We said bakers.
Yeah,
No.
Bakers. I think
Yeah.
it's the lowest proof, so we'll start
Awesome.
with Bakers.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pour out, and like I said, what we're gonna do is kind of go through and do like a little mini tasting while we're talking about the different topics. And
It's like
this,
a paint and sip.
yeah, yeah,
but-
I love it.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna be tasting right now is Baker's single barrel high rye bourbon. It's a limited release and it's a 7-year age. It's sitting right at 107 proof, so we're right at about 53.5%. And let's see. So the back of the bottle says, "I've always been a firm believer that being different is something to be celebrated. Perhaps that's why single barrels hold a special place in my heart." So the whole point of this is to be a perfected single barrel.
Yeah.
Right. So it's supposed to be complex. The flavors are supposed to be in there. So I'm excited for this one. Let's see what we get.
I feel like everybody wants to have a perfect single barrel, especially when you're doing your barrel picks. I mean, but it's all
It's all based on your profile too, and your
everybody
your-
has. We all have
your-
different palates.
exactly.
So like, I'm not normally a huge rye fan.
Yeah.
However, I'm becoming a bigger rye fan. One
So
of the
put it on
ones
there
that
when you're done.
Yeah. So I think the crazy part too is as I get same thing. Never cared for ryes.
Yeah.
At all. Maybe I would have like a Rittenhouse rye old fashioned.
Right.
But as
Yep.
I get more into these higher proofs of bourbon and
Yeah.
whiskey, I feel like that's kind of opening the door for me.
Yeah.
For here you go, Gemma.
Well, and there's a lot of the high proof ryes that we've seen have been using a lot more malted barley in it, right?
Yeah.
Because it tends to balance out. I forget
The
what-
sweetness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you have a high proof rye at 130%, or sorry, 130 proof. If you don't have anything else in there, I mean, that is a punch in the face.
Always a punch
Yeah.
in the face. Like a lot of my buddies love the barrel proof. However, I've realized my sweet spot is really that 95 to 110
Yeah.
proof range, depending
Yeah.
on what it is.
Well,
Yeah.
I've told the story a bunch of times. I go fishing with my uncle in Rhode Island every year, and he had some bourbon guys come with us on one trip, and he sat down and he's like, "This is a 1 of 20 bottle. It's 145 proof," and he puts it down. Group of five men all sitting around. One of us finished it because it was just like, "Oh boy!"
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just straight gasoline.
yeah.
I'll tell you what, the nose on this is incredible.
Yeah.
For 103, the burn isn't there, the sweetness is there. I mean, and I love the color. Just in general, like this is
Yeah.
how you can tell this is a cask strength. This is like a single barrel because it maintains that color. What are you guys getting on the nose here?
Oh man, I'm always horrible at this. I feel like I've done so many tastings, and I'm just,
Right.
it's like it's booze.
It smells like
It's
bourbon.
Like,
It's liquid brown water.
yep. Let me see here.
I mean,
It's a little bit
vanilla,
harder in these
caramel.
glasses.
Yeah,
It is harder.
I do get the caramel and the
Get
spice.
polyethylene,
Yep. Yeah. What are the yeah?
microplastics.
I love it. No,
Um,
the sweetness is there. The
Carcinogens,
burn,
multiple.
burn isn't there as much.
Yep.
I'm gonna go
So,
ahead.
I mean, with rye, it's always, the traditional, like, spicy. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like, I always think of some ryes, it's either hyper
Holy shit.
peppery or it's more menthol.
Yeah.
Like spearmint, green
Hold on.
menthol. Or,
I got to get my phone. I got to look this up.
yeah, you're good.
Oh, so it is.
Or, peppercorns.
Right. Or we get a lot of like raw cinnamon, not
Yeah,
the
yeah.
you know what I mean,
Baking
not the
spice,
sweet, but yes, like a bake.
baking chocolate.
Yes, exactly.
Or even like Mexican chocolate,
Yep.
And that's so again, it just depends on everybody's olfactories or just their senses.
Yep.
Like, again, it's if you're drinking rocket fuel all the time, I just feel like that's why you need the barrel proof,
Right,
To
yes.
actually taste things.
Yeah.
Using
well,
Vodafone.
we've done it because we'll go barrel proof or cask strength,
Yeah.
and then the next week I think we had something that was like, I think it was
This is good.
80 proof,
Yeah.
and it felt like we were just drinking water.
So this
Mhm.
one,
Like,
this
it was
one,
just hard to
Mhm.
actually talk about it because I'm like, there's just nothing there.
I just wanted to see because this being a does it
Is very
I
sweet.
I can't believe this is
Yeah.
high rye.
It is sweet.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And I think the coolest part about this being a single barrel is it's blowing my mind how light this is on the tongue.
Yeah.
Normally ryes come out and they're going to dry the shit out of you.
Yeah, it's not.
Like
this
kind of
one-
like tannic
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, exactly. Like that, you get that. It sits on like the center
I
of
get
your
it on
tongue.
the center of the tongue,
Yeah.
and then it just dries it out.
Yeah, but this one,
Almost like
it's-
eating like a fucking
Yeah, it's
Sour
not like
Patch
that
Kid.
at all.
Yeah.
It's
You know?
not like that at all. That's wild.
Yeah, and that's I like to do tastings with my wife at home because women have such a stronger
Yeah.
understanding or comprehension of the actual notes. They have,
Right.
It's scientifically proven they have
Yeah.
more taste buds than men. So it's always interesting to get her feedback or do tastings with other women. Like it's just
Yeah, you get it's a completely different
they
experience.
start pointing out all kinds of
Yeah.
very eloquent things, and I'm like, oh, I didn't.
Is
Well,
that
I mean-
hibiscus?
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
What's crazy with this though is like, it builds. It like the dryness builds.
Yep.
But then it gives way to that vanilla caramel on the
Yeah,
back
that caramel on
end.
the back
Yep.
end
Is incredible.
Yeah,
Like,
it
and
just,
it's-
it balances it out.
Yeah, 100%. And it's almost as if like the rye in comparison with the alcohol kind of marry. It's not I'm getting a burn and then the rye's there. It's
Yeah.
almost like
It's a good balance.
yeah, the rye
It's a
adds
good balance.
to
That's
the
what I always
ascension.
look for.
Yeah.
I mean, initial, it's definitely, to me, it's hot, spicy
Yep.
on the
Yep.
forefront, first sip, but then it definitely mellows out.
It
with
also
the
has some
lingering
like
effect.
plum
Yeah.
on the back end with that
Stone fruit.
vanilla. Yeah, stone fruit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Dark
No, that's,
stone fruit.
yeah,
That's
good.
awesome. Okay, so I want to ask you. We always talk about like single barrels or cask strength stuff like that. What
You and I were I was about to ask the exact same
I was gonna say why do barrels why do barrels matter? Why does like so can you break down to us like the main type of barrels and then why certain barrels are more sought after?
Yeah. So obviously, like with bourbon, it always has to be virgin white oak. Now, I think I should know this considering how long I've been in the industry. I don't believe it has to be American white oak.
No. Not from what we've seen. At
I don't
least.
think so.
Yeah,
I think,
just-
and I used to believe that it always had to be American
Right.
white oak. I think it just has to be a charred white oak barrel. So it
Right.
could be French oak, it could be
Yeah.
Hungarian oak,
Right.
as long as it's white oak and charred. And then it's only once used, and it has the 50%
So actually,
corn mash.
that old soul that I was telling you
Yeah.
about, that cat head, they actually use their own white oak.
White oak, yes,
oh,
they do.
Yeah.
So they
So
harvested their
They
own.
are
and
they
sent
have
off.
their own. I
Yeah.
want to say plantation. That's probably politically incorrect. But orchard of just white
Yeah,
oak.
and they use their own.
Yeah,
Forest. Their own.
Yeah.
oak.
Their own
Yeah,
forest.
exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's Mississippi, so
Yeah.
a little bit behind. But yeah, no. And that's one of the things that ISC will do, depending on the customer, of course. But even in Ireland, our cooperage there, KBB Island, our Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Island, they Irish oak tree had fell over, and they sent it off to be processed, milled
Yeah.
into staves, and so now those staves went to our French cooperage that does a lot of the French wine
Okay.
Awesome.
barrels,
Okay.
the wine casks and whatnot, and then so they're air drying the staves right now, and then they're going to cooper that barrel back into a 200 liter 53 gallon barrel, which is like the standard spirit barrel size, and then it's going to go to an Irish whiskey producer.
Yeah.
I don't know who, I forget which one, but so it'll be very unique because again, it's that homogeneous or that
Specific tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
indigenous tree that
Yeah.
is in
Right.
the space to that
Certain
terroir.
humidities, elevation, stuff like that. Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
very French-like in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The French are very proud about their terroir and their forests and whatnot. So, and that, I mean, rightfully so. Every forest is very different.
Right. Yeah.
And it just depends. Like people can be very specific about what they want. I just like this morning I was just looking through emails and somebody was requesting Spanish oak, and it gives you a completely different profile.
Yeah.
One of the balconies, the one we like, the Cataleja,
Cataleja. That was-
uses Spanish oak.
Mhm.
That's one
Okay,
of-
so
one
yeah,
of those,
I'm wondering. I think maybe ISC probably did that.
Yeah.
Because we did have some Spanish oak barrels, which there was like a few remnants left over, and I
Right.
sent some over to Dancing Goat Distillery, and they absolutely love them.
Yeah.
For their 100% corn mash whiskey that they call the Spaniard, that they age in, and they just love them.
So are you guys okay? So I just want to clarify what and he touched on it earlier. He's not in the production, like actually putting the spirit in the barrel.
No.
Where he takes over is once that spirit is then poured out of the barrel. This is why we want to have him on. There's
Yeah.
an entire secondary market
Right.
Yeah.
just for the barrel after
Yeah.
it's used. So I'm guessing one thing that I wanted to ask, as far apart from the barrel itself, is like you just said you have people calling and requesting certain
Yeah.
barrels. So how do you have like a warehouse? Do
Yeah.
you source them from from the actual distillers? Do you buy them from them? How does that work?
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like maybe we should go back even further.
Okay, yeah.
Just to because I think we had talked about it before, but like the actual beginnings of a barrel.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, kind of going back and like I'll try to be as succinct as possible.
I was gonna say, I love that. Take us through kind of the life.
Yeah.
And then how it gets to you.
Yeah. So then we'll go back to your question
Yeah.
of this on the secondary market or the back end when the barrel gets emptied, and how that all works. So, yeah. So like I was saying, white oak. Traditionally is what's used for the majority of the spirit barrels in the U.S. So it's going to be Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee. There's also Minnesota, New York. But basically, it's really that Missouri, kind of like the Bible Belt in a lot of ways, where the majority of the white oak comes from. And then so those trees get felled or they get logged. And then they get processed, they get milled. But they also, the logs have to get hand selected. So like ISC is always paying top dollar to get the best logs, and they're competing with, and this translates back to the real estate realm in a lot of ways because they're competing with the lumber providers to construction and building homes, and not just that, but other industries like flooring and whatnot. So, they always get pissed off at ISC because ISC is paying such top dollar to get these logs.
Just crazy. We're paying top dollar to construct whiskey barrels. Houses though. We'll
Right.
take whatever's left. It's fine.
Right.
In my head, I just saw an image of a guy like walking down a tree trunk, just like,
Yeah.
smacks it at the end. This is the one.
Yeah,
the one.
basically, yeah. I've met a few of the guys.
But sir, I'd like my house to not fall down. Fuck off.
Yeah,
We're making bourbon over here, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's an interesting realm too to itself. Being an arborist and all that stuff and knowing what to look for. So they'll go pick up the logs, and then once they get that sorted, they will mill them down at the stave mills, and then they get put into these rough planks or stave sets, and they get air dried, so the rough cut, and then after that they get further processed at the cooperage. So there's these massive yards, and if you go on ISC's website, you can kind of see some of these images of these massive stave yards where it's air seasoning. And there's air seasoning, and then there's kiln dried seasoning of the wood, because when the wood gets chopped down, it's very green, and that's where you kind of you can see like you get that green flavor in a lot of these some of these brands, because there's some coopers. There's some companies out there that are making barrels that are wood that's not really traditionally aged, or not. How do I say this correctly? Articulate this properly, but. There's just a lot of green wood out there that sometimes doesn't get processed properly.
Got it.
Or it's the producer not letting it mature long enough, right? And so they're just cutting it too short. But anyways, the wood is green. You have to let it air season. And it really ultimately, when you're creating a barrel, it's all about the level of degradation to that wood. So let it be a natural degradation or a heat-controlled degradation. That's where those flavors start to come in play. Is actually the decomposition of the wood. That's where and then you got to pinpoint. It's like a precision type thing. But there's a lot of people that advocate are like, oh, all our wood is air seasoned, 24, 36, 48 month, blah blah blah, and there's some validity to that. But it's almost like buying a still produced whiskey versus a column still, right? Column still is going to be pretty consistent always, whereas the pot still is always going to be
variations.
So
Yep.
the same thing with wood. If you air season it versus kiln drying it, you're going to get variation.
Yeah, you have less control over the process.
Yeah.
And it takes longer.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's why they charge a little bit more for it.
Right.
More artisan, more hipstery.
Yeah.
I love it.
Connoisseur-like. But and so what ISC does, they'll do air seasoning. Depending on, it's really up to the distillers. The distillers kind of dictate this sometimes. Because they have
based on what they're trying to accomplish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the old distillers, the heritage distillers have that really dialed in, whereas the newer distillers, they're still trying to figure it out. And so that's why you'll see a lot of variance in some of the newer products that come out, because, again, it's kind of like trial and error until they get it figured out finally.
Yeah.
And that's where you do encounter a lot of the green whiskeys, et cetera, or just some that are just like, this wasn't ready yet.
Right.
So anyways, they get that seasoning done, but then what ISC will do, they'll traditionally, depending on, again, the distiller, they will kiln dry it. So they'll essentially put it in these big warehouses to dry it out further, a little bit more quickly, to get that water content down, the moisture level down. And so then after that gets to a certain point, they'll pull it out. Essentially these big ovens, right?
Yeah.
But massive warehouse style. and then they'll pull it out, and then they'll process it to be refined down into a much more cleaner cut piece of wood that then gets fashioned into the barrel. When they are picking out those staves, though, they're looking for knots. They're looking for just chunks. Sometimes there's, like, depending on where the wood was sourced, like in France and even in some parts of the east of the U.S., there's still some bullets from the wars.
Wow.
Yeah, so, like, it's wild. Like, not necessarily in the stave piece, but when they're milling it for logs. But sometimes in the stave piece, I think some of that stuff can still be found. So that's really interesting because you come across history when you're breaking down these trees.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's like D-Day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
like-
seriously, yeah.
Wow, that's
absolutely.
incredible.
And
So are they looking for those knots and those
Yeah.
imperfections because it adds that character once?
so
or are
the
they trying to-
imperfections is for about leaking, and that's
Got it.
another reason to go back to the white oak piece. White oak is a very tight wood, so there's tyloses and the way that it's kind of like veins in wood,
Yeah.
right? And then how that wood is chopped. And I'm forgetting there's like axe split, and then there's machine split, but there's actually specific terms that I'm totally blanking on right now.
Wow.
But depending on how that log is cut.
And does that play into your decision at the back end? Like,
Yeah.
do you see that? Like, when you're looking, like, if you were looking at this barrel,
It depends on.
like, would it say on there, like,
Yeah.
white oak?
Oh yeah, there's full traceability on all of it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
and
Okay.
that's becoming a bigger thing too, is the full traceability of these barrels, and I'll get more into that here a little
That's
bit
like
later.
when you buy like a purebred dog.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
go
yeah,
back,
exactly.
The
Yeah.
lineage.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my German Shepherd's father was Dog von Buren from
Yes.
like in 1870
yeah,
whatever.
the lineage, the
Yeah.
heritage.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
I mean,
That's
it's
incredible.
crazy. So you get to that piece, and they're finalizing. They're getting the staves to be fashioned into the barrel. It takes about 28 to 32 staves per whiskey barrel, spirit
Okay.
barrel, 53-gallon barrel, and then they get the 6 rings or hoops. Then it goes off to be processed to be either charred or toasted and then charred. And there's different levels of toast: light, medium plus, heavy. And there's like really 5 levels of char. Although, so there's char 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's the 5th char level.
Yeah.
But that's like damn near incinerating the barrel. And
Right.
Yeah.
And when you get to the higher char level, you're increasing a lot more the charcoal, right? That's actually the filter. That
like
filters.
it's a carbon filter
Yeah.
at that
Yep.
point. Yeah.
Wow.
Like I was saying, I think
Like a
chatting earlier,
Brita
it's like
filter.
a Brita filter.
Right. Yes.
And so a lot of people think that the color is coming from the char, but it's
Right.
actually not. It's the actual wood itself.
Got it.
So a toasted barrel would give it probably more color than a char barrel would.
Right.
In
So
theory.
what's the time frame between like from start to finish on a barrel? Like, are we talking?
It
is
could be
months. Is it years? Is it?
Yeah, it could be years. Like I said, if it's air season for 24 months, that's
Yeah.
2 years, and then the process. But honestly, after that, the process to make a barrel can go pretty quick.
Pretty quick.
Back in the day, though, when they used to do it, there's like a guy in New York that still makes barrels by hand, and it takes him, I think, a week to make one barrel.
Wow.
Jesus.
Whereas ISC's pumping out thousands a day.
Yeah. That's
That's
crazy.
incredible.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Wow. Okay. And I didn't. So, toasting and charring.
Yeah.
Toasting is basically it's in an environment where it's heated, but it's not burned.
Correct.
Is that correct?
It's
and
like
then,
just think of it as like when you make toast in the morning.
yeah.
So you select what level of toast you want. You can either have that nice brown caramelization kind of color or whatever, like
Yeah.
one that you aim for, right?
Right.
Or you just leave it and forget it, and then you have
So are they
looks
like,
like it came out
But
of a
it's
fire pit.
instead of like a direct heat flame, it's
Mm-hmm.
more of like a
like an oven?
is
So,
it like that or
That's a good question too, because there's infrared. We
Okay.
have infrared,
Yeah.
which is really cool. That's a newer technology, but traditionally it's over an open flame pit. That's
Really?
controlled.
Oh.
And they're adding water to control the level and intensity. So some of these barrels, they call them pots, and they're either gas fed or they're fed with leftover oak
Yeah.
pieces, right? So natural fed. And then it's just simply rotating it. The guy's paying attention, the barrel maker's paying attention to it, or the toaster, whatever you want to call them, and the cooper. But it's just they're just paying attention to it, rotating it around to make sure it's evenly done.
Right.
And then they're applying water to make sure it's the exact toast level. Like it's very precise.
Yeah.
Or at least on ISC's
I'd love
end.
to
Sure.
see. I'd love to see the Excel sheet or like the tracker
yeah.
that they have for these things, and just be like the guy sitting there like. In
Dude,
three,
I'm imagining like
two,
Yeah.
1.
Yeah.
All right, pull it.
Yep.
I'm imagining like this just giant underground cave like Mordor, where like
Yeah.
people are just over these open flames,
Just metal
Yes.
clanging in the
spit
background.
roasting,
Yeah.
and then somebody's in the back.
Well, and some cooperages are like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Some I've been to some that I'm like, wow, this
like
is
you
Mordor.
haven't seen sunlight in a while, so
Yes.
have you?
Yes, and
incredible.
it's smoky, and it's like, yeah, this is what Mordor would be like.
That's
so, yeah.
hilarious.
That's awesome.
That's-
all right. So once they get there, it's been toasted, been charred. After that point, you said they construct the barrel, right?
Yep. Well, the barrel's already essentially constructed by that time. It's
Okay.
just the belly.
Yep.
And then the end pieces or the heads, those get charred or toasted separately in a different process, but it's the same application, but they're just flat versus the bilge or the barrel piece.
Okay. So remember we had what was the bourbon that had snout to tail, whistle pig snout to tail. Have you had that?
Yeah, the Vermont
Yeah.
White Oak.
Oh,
and-
where they-
I haven't had it yet. but-
Okay. So
They flipped it, right?
yeah. So they had a different oak on the top and a different oak on the bottom.
I think ISC did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because ISC makes the majority of the barrels, I believe.
Okay.
I think they did. I'm pretty positive.
It was interesting because it
It
did
did.
add some layer to it. So, and while you were saying that, it made me think of it because that adds just another layer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
are you even after that? And I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but are you even going down to like, hey, do you guys want us to have this barrel here, and would you like to have a certain cap on it, or
Yeah.
are they ordering like that?
Yeah, you can kind of Frankenstein it together, piecemeal it. Like
Wow.
we want American oak heads or French oak heads, toasted or charred. 24-month air season ones or 9-month. So it's kind of like, it's a very much custom
Yeah.
piece, right?
Yeah.
Whereas before, like you were saying, in the Caves of Mordor, it was just you get
Right.
what you get.
You get
it's
what you get,
charred,
yeah.
and
Right.
that's what you get. But it's
Wow.
become so much more refined and precise. I mean, ISC has a team of engineers constantly trying to figure out and improve and make
That's
the best
insane.
barrel the quickest as possible and for
Wow.
the cheapest as possible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this. It feels like in the last decade, there's been so much more money infused into the bourbon space
Yep.
to try and do things like this and perfect it a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's kind of exponential too. Like that's where it gets confusing. I mean, especially like when
Yeah.
I started buying bottles, like what does this even mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And even I worked for a cooperage, and it gets confusing, and I think it gets overwhelming too for people, the general consumers in the marketplace. It's like, well, I just want a good bourbon.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't even know what cask strength or single barrel is, or small batch, or bottled and bond, or this or
Right.
that. So and then you start adding in the cask
aren't-
finishes.
I was gonna say, aren't cask strength and single barrel like the same thing?
No.
Essentially,
Yeah.
they can be.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Or
all-
cast strength and barrel strength
Yeah.
is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because single barrel is just that's
The one barrel.
the one barrel
Yeah.
that they produce, and that's it. Next one will be different.
Yep.
Cast strength, they just whatever proof that comes out.
Yep.
There's no watering down anything.
Wow. Okay. So with that being said, is there then like?
Charlie, you're slacking on your job, by the way.
Well, we're getting there. We're getting there. I'm pouring the second one. I guess as we move into kind of the next phase of the life of the barrel, once now it's been utilized, it's put together, it's been utilized, caps, it gets sent to that distillery. They use it. What's the average time frame that a distillery will use a barrel before it gets to you? And now what we're gonna do, guys, I'm gonna pour out the Angel's Envy. You guys know we've had a bunch of Angel Envy on the show. This is one of Oscar's favorites.
Dude, the rye finish in sherry cask
Yeah.
is one of my favorites.
So the one that we're drinking now is the cask strength, and it's 120 proof. We're sitting at 60.2. This one was bottled was it bottled in 2020?
2020. Yeah.
Yeah, bottled
Yep.
in 2020. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour that out.
One of those COVID era.
I love it.
You have to drink it with a mask on.
I mean, that's when I really started drinking bourbon because we couldn't leave the house anyway.
Right. And that's where my library of bottles just blew up.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
That's all I did.
I'm gonna put it down here.
These $1,200 stimulus checks go a long
Buddy.
way.
Yeah, it's brutal. Brutal.
That one will be yours.
All right. Sweet.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right. So get my nose in it, swirl
Yeah.
it around a little bit. Oh,
Polyethylene.
man.
No, I was kidding.
Totally different.
No, it is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
a lot sweeter on the front.
Yep.
Yeah.
More floral.
And that's gonna, that cask finish, that port, that's where you're getting a lot of that sweetness from.
Yeah.
And also the darker color. So you look at it next to the rye. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard to tell, but it's been
No, the
exciting.
rye's definitely
Yeah.
like got that more of that brown darkness to
Yep.
it.
Yeah,
Versus
it's more
the Angel's
amber.
Envy is more ruby.
Yep.
More red.
Yep.
That's incredible. And I mean, on the nose in general, getting a lot of that fruit up front. Not a lot of sweetness. A little
Yeah.
bit of spice on it. All right. They're tasting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm go
Dude,
for it.
yeah, the plum,
Oh yeah.
it's,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That just goes to show why the barrel is so important.
There's a bit of kick on there.
It is, yeah. in the back
Not
end,
on the back end.
On the
not,
back
not
end,
on the front end
yeah.
like
Yeah.
a rye.
That's what I was saying. It's definitely at the back.
Yeah,
there.
it's like, oh, this is easy, and then you feel the 120.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild. So okay, so you said that's something I wanted to kind of touch on real fast before we get into the kind of the back end of the barrel.
Yep.
So when you have a company that does a finish in a port or a wine barrel, a rum barrel, whatever that is, what does that look like on the back end as far as does that go directly from a wine producer to that distillery, or does it
Sometimes.
go into it does?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, so like specifically this Hirsch, I don't think I've ever worked with Hirsch directly. I don't think so. But I'm pretty sure they probably work directly with, if they're using their name on the
Yeah.
label,
They're
they
working
probably
directly
work
with
directly.
the-
And like
yeah.
Bardstown Bourbon does that a lot too with
Okay.
like Amroot, the Indian malt finish one.
Okay.
They do the Goose Island barrel finish.
And
Like
so
the
is
Whistle
that
Pig.
then between the distillery and like in the winery, or is that
Yeah.
something? Yeah. So it's
Sometimes
directly.
sometimes we'll be involved just to process the barrels because
Okay.
again they're used, right?
Yeah.
And so like a cognac barrel could be upwards of 30 plus years old, and then they're sitting in these dungy, dank cellars.
Right.
And so that wood, I mean, it's wood. It just gets funky, and
Yeah,
it needs,
so
to
to
be
retain moisture and
it needs to be recoopered. The hoops get rusted, and it needs to have just like an old car, it needs to have a tune-up.
right.
And so that's what we will do in Ireland with a lot of the European casks. In the U.S., that's what we're doing with the bourbon barrels, tequila barrels, and rum barrels. So we're really focused on spirit barrels in the U.S., whereas our Irish counterpart, sister cooperage, is doing a lot of the bigger casks,
Okay.
the wine-style casks. And you'll notice the two different words I use, bourbon or barrel
Yep.
versus a cask.
Versus a cask.
And that's a whole other
A whole other
pod-
episode.
Yeah, another episode. But so the barrels will get refurbished essentially, and that's why we exist. Because there are people that will just sell a barrel. We call it a distillery run barrel.
Okay.
Or wine, just fresh dumped from the wine or something like that. But the caveat with that is there's going to be a lot of barrels that need repair. Like
Yeah.
you can't. The staves get cracked because it's 500 pounds when full.
Yeah.
And they're rolling around. The staves will get cracked. I mean, also they get moldy because depending on where they're sitting in the rick or rack house. And so they require to be inspected to also make sure that you're getting actually what you ordered, right?
Right.
That's a big issue. That's a
Oh,
big
yeah.
issue I've
Yeah.
seen. Yep. 100%.
And a lot of people will just black out the heads, sand off
Mm-hmm.
things, and it's like, well, I ordered a bourbon barrel, but you sent me a rye, but they don't know.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of a big issue in some of the markets that we have that we service. It's like people are selling in even ex-beer barrels,
Yeah.
as
Wow.
bourbon barrels, and it's like that's obviously just horrible, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then eventually they catch on, and then it just makes them super suspect or suspicious about
Yeah.
anybody that they
Yeah.
work with.
Yeah.
So that's why we have this full traceability. We're actually ISO certified. Which
What
is
does that
like,
mean?
ISO is an international standard for like QC, QA, quality
Okay, yeah.
control and management, and like
Wow.
having a set established processes and things in place that you're always putting out a consistent, always
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
You have the traceability, like it just gives you another layer of legitimacy.
I love
And
it.
I'm pretty sure we're the only used barrel cooperage with that. And
Well,
that
I mean,
was-
I think now it's even more necessary now than ever because, like
Oh,
you
yeah.
said, there's so many hands in the pot.
Yep.
There's so many people that are saying, "Oh, look at this barrel. Take this barrel. I have this one."
Yeah.
That regulation is necessary.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of purists will be like, "No, we don't want the regulation."
Exactly.
But as you get these companies that are claiming,
Right.
in a sherry cask, in a
Yeah.
port cask, I want to know 100% that the money that I'm paying for
Right.
that
Exactly.
extra
Exactly
flavor
what you're
is
getting. Right.
exactly is what it is.
Yeah, and the barrels are a commodity too. Like they vary in price. Like I mean, used barrels were almost the same price as a new barrel.
Okay,
the
so
last few
I
years.
love it. I love it. So let's go ahead. So we did kind of lifespan until distillery use it, then they can sell between themselves. How does it get to you? Like,
Yeah, good question. So we get it because obviously we have the partnerships already, kind of just long time established partnerships and connections. But with ISC, when they bought us out, that became even a bigger part of our sourcing, our procurement.
Yeah.
And so we have, because they're supplying it on the front end, and then we're the outlet on the back end. Because back in the day, they used to just toss these damn things in the field.
Yeah.
Or burn them.
Yeah.
And because there's just so many.
Right.
And then also, it just depends also when. So yeah, so it's just connections, and if you're on the supplier side already on the beginning, it's just nice to have somebody already on the back end
Right.
that will take it. And so that's what we do, and we also do it very well. And that's a big piece because you got to have, it's like storing barrels. It requires a lot of real estate.
Yep.
And that's a big thing. It's not just real estate for us, but also real estate for the distilleries.
Sure.
Because they're really just in the business to make bourbon or a spirit or wine and not retain the barrels on site. So they're not really set up to hold all these empty barrels.
Right.
That's why they just get tossed in the fields. Well, now we exist because, again, we're adding that value-add service of inspecting it, identifying it, QR coding it,
And how long has ISC been doing this? What's the...
Well, ISC's been making new barrels for about 112 years, I think, almost
Okay.
now. And then we've been doing this for about, 12 years
wow.
on the U side. So it started, then ISC
Wow,
acquired
so it's
us.
relatively young.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're one of the younger ones out there, but one of the older ones as well.
Yeah.
But ISC partnered with us because that was like the one piece of their vertical integration that they were missing.
Yeah.
Was the back end, They've had everything else kind of vertically integrated, but not on the recycling.
I just
piece.
again, I love the synchronicity or the symbiosis there,
Yeah.
where the bourbon industry is coming up, more people are producing bourbon, more different partnerships are coming up, and it's almost as if the market demanded something like you do. It was almost as in like, no, we're trying to separate ourselves from everybody else, and make ourselves this level, and which basically birthed what you do and your knowledge.
Well, and I have a follow-up question on that too. So, as far as getting the barrels in, you guys are certifying them, you're inspecting them, you're refurbishing them. How does that process happen while still maintaining the character of the barrel?
Right, that's a good question too.
That people are ordering, right? Because in my head, I go, okay, if they want this type from this, whether it's a cask, whether it's a barrel, but it gets to you guys, you find imperfections with it. What does that look like when it comes to refurbishing to keeping that same the character?
Exactly. So that's a good question too, because if you were to ever, and you're always welcome to come visit too, to see how we do it. But
hell yes.
Tell me twice. Well then,
you're always welcome to come visit.
Mile High Perspective might be traveling.
Road trip.
Exactly. And so that process is involved. I mean, it gets pretty detailed in that because again, you got to have separate. So like again, Heaven Hill barrel needs to have Heaven Hill staves in it. A Brown Forman or Woodford Reserve barrel needs to have the same staves going back into it. And so that's all separated out. And the coopers on site, or barrel technicians as we call them sometimes, it's all sorted. They get all sorted. They basically cannibalize one of the barrels or X amount of barrels from that load that came in so that they can maintain that 8-year maturation or the 3-year maturation or, so that essentially the stave that they're replacing, the individual stave. Because typically this stave, I don't know if you can see it, but the bung stave is it's the widest stave, but it's also the weakest stave.
Okay.
And typically this is one of the main staves that's always being replaced because it gets cracked.
Okay.
Also because they're hammering on it to get the wood bung out.
Right.
And that's also called the bung hole, just so
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So if you like to smell bung holes,
Where's my Beavis and Butthead?
Yes, everybody loves that. Everybody loves that. Come smell our bung holes.
It's a great marketing tag.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. I'm not sure if ISC marketing would agree with me on that, but
We have the cleanest bungholes.
we have the cleanest, we have the best, the most inspected bung holes ever. So
It's given a colonoscopy.
Yes.
Every time I go to a tasting, I'm going to use it and be like, do you know how clean this bunghole is?
Yeah.
How old is this
exactly.
bunghole?
How old was this bung hole? Yeah. So I love that. I'm so jovial when it comes to this. So it's good.
I love it.
So that's what we're replacing. We'll take, and that's why when we get the truck in, and again we're inspecting it, tagging it, and like I said, we'll cannibalize some of those barrels from that load.
So you guys have it's sectioned off as like here's 3-year staves from Heaven Hill. 8-year staves from Bardstown. Like whatever it is, and then as you guys replace, that's what you're matching. That's insane to me. Like that.
It's incredible.
It is.
For me, I love that only because the effort and the appreciation and respect that goes into it. And
the craftsmanship. Right? Because you can't do that fully automated.
No.
Right? Like it's
so,
just not.
Hold on.
Not yet.
So what you're telling me is a lot of the time you're fully reconstructing barrels before you sell them?
Yeah.
Really?
Not fully. I mean, it's rare. If it like fully would be a task.
Yeah.
But they are doing it in our Ireland operation because that's another thing I'll talk about. Is what we'll do is we'll take some of these barrels that held bourbon, and then we'll actually kind of do like what they do with the new barrels. But what they'll do is they'll scrape out the inside, sand it down to fresh, raw, virgin oak, and then they'll char it or retoast it. So they do it predominantly with wine barrels. Dr. Jim Swan was one of these guys that pioneered it. I'm sure they've been doing it forever, but actually had to put science behind it, where they would take X wine barrels, shave down the inside to re-expose that raw virgin oak, and then retoast it or char it to whatever specification. And then there's also barrels called a hogshead, which is essentially a spirit barrel that gets staves added to it.
Yeah.
And so we call them hoggy in the industry, but then they add, so it goes from a 200 liter to a 250 liter, and it's a hogshead cask. And then there's a sherry butt, or butts, and there's punch-ins. So like,
Yeah.
Okay, wait. Last week's
no.
no.
Sorry, you have a memory.
Yeah,
No,
well,
I was going to ask this.
Last week we had the gallon difference.
It's the
right?
opposite. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so we had 13th century whiskey, which is they're from
Here, Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs.
Okay.
But they use instead because these are 53 gallons.
Yes, sir.
They use
30.
30 gallon.
30
Yeah.
gallon.
Yep. And so that's always this. Everybody's trying to find that secret sauce to rapidly age.
Yes.
Ah.
Okay. So that's why. All right.
Okay.
Because
And
we
so-
had that question last
Yeah.
week. I'm like, I wonder what the difference is and why you would do it
Yep.
in a smaller
So like
barrel.
few spirits, Balcones I think used to do it back in the day, and then I think that Jared might get mad at me for saying that.
Jared's a good guy. He'll be fine.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Kings County,
Uh huh.
and the handful of other, there's a lot of people out there because the 30 gallon, 25 gallon, or even smaller is 5 gallons. But the thing is, yes, you do get more rapid maturation. You get the coloring, you get the flavor. However, it could go south real quick.
Right.
And you could also encounter that green piece or that pencil like lead taste, because
Yeah.
it just was in there for too long. And so you got to be really precise with it. And some of these guys have it dialed in.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But the reason why a lot of distillers start out with them is because, it's just money sitting there, right?
Sure.
And you need to make money, so that's why
Right.
everybody's starting out with clear.
You think maybe that's
spirits.
why they go char 2, 3, 4, 5 after?
Possibly.
Yeah.
To further refine it.
Yeah, give
and
it a little bit more
And
level.
actually, that's kind of a genius thing to do too, because you do add some more complexity to it. And
Well, it
you
makes
are-
sense, right?
Yeah.
We talk
Yeah.
about it all the time. Like if I start a distillery or a whiskey company today,
Yeah.
and I'm distilling, my investment, I'm not going to see a return for
Right.
Yeah.
7 years, 5 years, 3
Yep.
years, whatever it
Wow.
is. So
Okay.
it makes sense to find that at least to get to market.
Yep.
So then I want to ask, because I'm sure you've seen it, bourbon whiskey lovers have seen it. There's these things that they sell now where it's like a barrel at home that
Yeah,
has a tap at
yeah.
the front that you could.
Yep.
What if I take this Angel's Envy
Yep.
and I pour it into that
Yep.
barrel, but obviously if you've looked inside of them, there's no profession there. They're literally just like store your bourbon here, store
yeah.
your whiskey in here.
And
So,
honestly, and I don't mean to interrupt, but honestly,
Yeah.
they're typically like old tequila bourbon barrels that just the staves get cut down, shaved down.
redo it.
It's just taking this and shrinking it, right? Because they're doing like that STR process, the shave,
man.
toast,
Wait,
rechar.
so could I go buy one of those and like figure out the process to toast it and char
Yeah.
it myself and then make like my own
You could.
Frankenstein whiskey.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're married, I don't know if you're married, but your wife might get mad at you for tinkering around the damn garage for too
Yeah.
much, and then you
Huh.
might get upset because maybe it's not watertight enough. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, everybody's trying to find that secret sauce to make it age faster. There's people with the machines that you can run it through that has like wood chips in it.
Yep.
And that's a whole other part of the industry is like actually taking wood chips and teabagging spirits essentially.
We had I think was it Oak and Eden?
I love it. So far,
Yeah.
we've had
Was
teabag
it
in the spirits.
Oak and Eden
the
that does
bunghole.
the?
I mean,
Yes.
it's great.
Was it the Oak and Eden that did the
Oak
stave
and Eden
inside
had
the
the spiral.
Yes.
spire inside the barrel?
spirals
inside the glass? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
There was another one we did that did the aging in the barrels, but then they actually put
That's what I
staves
was saying. Inside the.
inside the
Yeah.
barrel.
Maker's Mark 46 ISC, because Maker's Mark never changed. They don't have anything different, right?
Right.
They've always just been Maker's Mark.
Yep.
But they worked with ISC to develop Maker's Mark 46, and if
Yeah.
you ever do a private barrel selection with Maker's Mark, you're actually doing that. You're picking out the staves you want,
Got it.
and we make those too.
Do they have one?
What?
They
Didn't
probably
we
do.
Didn't we do like a select
It's a
from-
really cool process.
Yes.
from Makers where they selected?
Makers,
Yeah, it was. I
correct.
think it was
Yeah.
like 5 episodes ago.
Yeah, it's
Where the
46.
Rouge. Yeah.
Makers
Yeah, we
46,
had that. Yeah.
It's
That's
a really,
awesome.
Yeah, it's a really cool process, and I think a lot of people, like, again, there's purists, like, oh, that's not bourbon. It's like, but it is, because
Yeah.
it's this brand new oak.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it's not what you do. It's just in the barrel. It's like, well, yeah, but this takes it, again, another exponential level.
Mhm.
Right.
Because it's so many different woods or white oaks that you could do, the French, American, Hungarian, whatever it is. and then the different toast levels,
Right.
and then also the process of toasting it. You get different tannins or lignins and what else? What is it? Andrew's gonna get mad at me for not remembering this, but basically the flavor, the caramel, the vanilla,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
vanillins,
Yeah.
with how it's heat treated.
Correct.
You
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
And
Because
degraded.
it leaks into the.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll leak into the liquid
Okay.
based on the char level.
I'm slacking again. All right,
Yeah.
so we're gonna do the next bottle we're gonna taste is gonna be the Hirsch Selected Whiskeys, and this is the Cask Strength Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, finished in cognac barrels.
Yep.
This one's gonna sit at 127 proof, and
Creeping
it's
up.
yeah, we're creeping up,
Creeping up.
and it's 63.5. So as I'm pouring this out, getting ready to do the tasting, so you said this is kind of like like a newer thing with the barrels and doing in wine cask, in cognac, and we had one that was in an agave, like a tequila
Yep.
barrel.
Yep.
That was
That was
fantastic.
phenomenal.
Tequila,
Yes,
Yeah.
tequila
that was
finish.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And then there's also Amburana, which is a Brazilian wood.
So is this something that is newer or
No,
like
so that's a good question. Like, spirits have always been finished in different barrels,
okay?
specifically Scotch and Irish whiskeys.
Yep.
But there's like a traditional
Yeah.
barrel traditional barrels that they would always use. So sherry, there's all kinds of different sherry, but fortified wines. So sherry, port, muscatel, muscat, Madeira.
Yep.
Those are like the core in cognac as well, and then also rum, and then tequila's becoming a little bit more on the forefront. Thank you.
Well, it was incredible because it was like the agave, the sweetness from the
Mm-hmm.
agave added this layer that we never had before.
Yep.
Like almost this dry sweetness to it.
Would you say like cause I always view tequila more as an agave is sweet.
Yeah.
But then but tequila in general, I always feel like it's more like earthy and mineral.
See, and it's funny because we talk
Yeah.
about this all the time. Like you always see like if you could shoot tequila straight, you're a drinker kind of thing.
Yeah.
Tequila to me is sweet. Like if you carbonated tequila, it would taste like Sprite to me.
I see the logic behind
Like-
that. I'm not a big tequila drinker, so like
Yeah.
I guess I need to move to Mexico.
There's
to get there.
that's the
Yeah.
reason I'm not a big tequila drinker.
yeah.
Well, and I agree, but we were talking about, because we went to this bourbon tasting, but there was a tequila company there.
Yeah.
And they're seeing now that tequila's taken on that same
Yeah.
evolution that bourbon did,
Yep.
where now there's a lot of experimentation.
Yep.
I look at it, though, from like a mezcal.
Mm-hmm.
To me, a mezcal is more similar to
Yep.
like a scotch,
Yeah.
right? Like it's got that real
Agreed.
peaty, earthy
Smoky
feel to
scotches,
it.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
'Cause there's
But
also
now
the
they're- Yeah.
So I agree with you.
So, but it's interesting because that was the first time. This is probably a month ago where we had, and I forget who the freaking. We need a list.
We need a board, pull it
Yeah.
up.
Dude, we need a board.
No, we just need the guy behind the camera.
Or the guy
It's
behind-
like, hey, pull it up.
Yeah, but it's right here.
Exactly.
But they did it, and they aged it in these añejo barrels.
Yes.
And it was and I'm not a tequila fan, like
Same.
at all. But I had that, and it was fantastic.
Because
It wasn't it wasn't.
Or Oscar
yeah,
took a bottle home. Somebody took a bottle home.
I
Was
took
it-
a bottle home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got her.
It was a bourbon that was finished in tequila.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was it Mary Dowling?
no.
No.
'Cause that's like rabbit holes offshoot.
No, it was a. I'll have to ask. Chris.
Yeah, it's
It's
up
up there
here.
somewhere.
It's here.
But it
So-
was great. But it took that sweetness of the agave,
Yep.
but it left out that tequila, like that bite.
Oh, man.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it complemented the bourbon really
I'm
well.
curious, like how long they've finished in that.
I think
Yeah.
it was 3 years.
3 years.
Okay.
I think it was 3 years.
And that's the time
2.
the liquid spends in these barrels is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it was a 5-year aged, but
Yeah.
it was 2 years in a bourbon
Yeah.
bourbon barrel, and then 3 years aged in.
Okay.
In an
I'll tell you what. This one, I'm very surprised, and I'll be honest with you. I haven't really drank a lot of cognac, but
I got cherry.
cognac tends to be sweeter, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So honestly, the nose on this one, it's not sweet at all. Like
No, I think it's because of how high
Yeah.
proof it is, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Well-
And that's what my buddy and I, when we were drinking it the first time, is just like, wow, this is intense.
it is fruity though.
It is fruity.
It is
Yeah.
fruity on the nose. It's like the fruit is the only thing that's punching through the
Yeah,
burn
I'm
for me.
getting like a lot of cherry plum.
Yep.
I'll tell you what though, I love the color that we
Right,
have
as
here.
it
Like
keeps getting darker.
it's getting darker on this one. All right, so I'm very interested in this because again, I don't really drink cognac, but and again, I'll be the first one to tell you, whenever I see a bourbon or a whiskey that's like, oh, finished in so and so
Yep.
barrel, I'm like, the fuck you trying to sell me? Like, are you just trying to add another $30 to the
Well,
price
yes,
tag?
yes, and yes, they are, but also it's a value. It's an upcharge for sure. But some of these barrels, like Mizunara oak from Japan, a leaky ass barrel, but some of those barrels sell for like $3,500 brand new.
Wow.
So they got to make their money back, right?
That's
Yeah.
insane.
That's
and
incredible.
That's crazy.
like a cognac barrel can be between I don't know. I think the range is between like $400 up to $800, depending on what it is.
Right.
The format size.
Yeah.
So like,
Wow.
because they can be a range of different sizes, and they're also French oak, and French oak is way more expensive,
expensive.
than American white oak.
Holy
But
shit.
yeah, so
Sorry.
there is validity to them charging more because they got to make that money back.
Right.
On that,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's still an investment at that point.
But it also helps them differentiate, like you said.
Yeah.
Right.
But I feel like
That back end is a chocolate covered cherry.
It is, and
That
it
is
stays
100%.
and it stays.
a-
Like it doesn't dissipate.
No.
I still.
like
It's good.
Oh man.
that's
Yeah.
why me and my buddy we're big fans of the cognac kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah. It's
That's well. And here's the thing. What do you think the malted barley on this is with the cognac?
like the mash bill.
Percentage?
Yeah,
Oh.
what do you think the mash bill is? It being in a cognac barrel. Like, what do you think they did to it? Where do you think it sits?
15%.
It's 15%. I did not expect it to be
Yeah.
that high.
Yeah.
Going
Yeah.
with a cognac, because like you would think, hey, let's
can
let's
ta- you
pull
can-
back. You can.
you can taste it,
Let's
though.
pull back a little bit on the sweetness with the malted
Yeah.
with the malted barley, and then let the cognac take that.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
it's almost as if they planned it, and that's what's adding to that chocolate candy cherry.
Yep.
At the back end, that's incredible.
There's some cognac, like there's a Jefferson's Reserve cognac.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Rye
Yeah.
finish
Yep.
in cognac.
Yep.
Amazing.
Wow. That's crazy.
I personally like cognac finishes.
Yeah.
What's
I like-
crazy too is this doesn't hit me at 126
No.
until it hits my esophagus.
Yes.
And then it sits.
Yes.
Right? But like the mouthfeel is just extremely
Incredible.
sweet. But then the burn sits about right here
Mm-hmm.
and it just stays.
Well, and it's just like again, it's the evolution of it is
That
incredible
Kentucky
because
hug.
It is.
yeah.
It is.
Well,
It
the
is.
evolution of it is because I taste the spices on the front end, and then like as it's going back, I'm getting the sweetness from it.
Yeah.
But then it sits on the tartness of the cherry with the chocolate.
Yeah.
And that sweetness. That's wild.
That is
Yeah.
wild.
That's incredible, especially for 127. Like
Yeah.
we call these danger bottles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like the whole reason we started this podcast is because
Blackout bottles.
we're just
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're just sitting around talking about real estate. We're like, why don't we do this in front of cameras?
Yeah.
You know, like why not?
Even if people don't think we're interesting, we think we're interesting.
Oh,
so let's
absolutely.
fucking do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, that's what I've really come to enjoy about drinking with my friends or family. Like, it's not drinking to get drunk.
Right.
It's like what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
We're just shooting
That's
the shit
yes. Yes.
and hanging out and talking and it makes you slow down
Yeah.
It does.
because you're
It
not
does.
shooting this. You're not at a crowded bar.
Yeah, it's not
slamming this,
fireball
right?
getting passed around. Or,
Yeah. exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, we're
Patron.
older.
Well, and I mean, at the same time, I thank you first off for coming on because just there's been 3 moments in the entire episode where I've just been like, holy shit, like wait,
Yeah.
they're like that's where the value comes
Right.
from
Mm-hmm.
because just as a standard drinker, again, like I said, you see these things and you're like, oh, that's to make me pay more. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
what is it going to do? But the level of genuine love that goes into
Yeah.
this from the beginning to the
Well,
end.
it's true craftsmanship.
It is
That's what
like
it is,
100%.
right? Yeah.
And I'm so glad that we've seen the rise and the investment in the industry that's
Right.
led to this. Because I mean, I know my grandfather, if he were to have some of these bourbons that are out now, he'd be like, "What the
What is
hell?
this?
is
Tarnation.
this? What the hell is this?"
I wonder if you'd like it more or not.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because back then it was so brutal. I think.
It was.
Even
it
though
was.
there's people that are all about the vintage
Yeah.
bottles and whatnot. But I'm curious,
That's
some
incredible.
of the old guard, what they would say.
You know,
Yeah.
I think they would. Probably,
I don't want none of that cognac
They'd hate
Frenchy
it.
bullshit.
They'd hate it in public, but they'd love it in private.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
100%.
Right? They'll be
Yeah.
like, "This is fucking bullshit," and then you go in the room that's hidden in a
Yeah.
hidden in a drawer somewhere.
Yep.
I love that. That's amazing. And okay, so that we've kind of gone
Dude,
through
that is
the
good.
Yeah.
lifespan of the barrel, kind of how it starts and then how it gets to you, and
Wow.
then kind of how it's chosen and distributed, rebuilt sometimes
We've
and
talked
sent
about
out.
the bunghole.
The
Talk
bunghole,
about- yep.
the bunghole, and
Sniffing
teabag and bourbon.
bungholes, Teabag and
Teabag
barrels.
and barrels.
Yeah.
So,
All the
okay.
important
All
So
the very
one big
things that
thing,
people want to know.
obviously, in the zeitgeist right now, in just the area of news going on, everything is about the tariffs.
Oh yeah.
And one thing we've touched a little bit on is how bourbon drinkers might see, because of the supply and demand issue,
Yep.
might see a benefit in prices. What does that look like on your end, especially because you are having to you're crossing borders.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
All the
so
time. That's
so
the
how do
majority of
you,
our business, yeah.
with your insight, with your experience, how do you think that these tariffs are going to affect the bourbon industry? Because a lot of people just think,
Yeah.
oh, hey, my bottle is going to go increase, but no, we're talking lumber to make the barrels.
Yep.
Now we're also talking the import and export of the barrel. What do you think that's going to do? How does that look?
Yeah, so it's tough. I mean, especially, don't want to get into the politics of it, but it's just like, every day is different as far as what the tariffs are or what they are or not.
Right.
If they're
Yeah.
being delayed 90 days or whatever. So I literally have like a majority of our business is export.
Yeah.
Because it's all used stuff. So the majority of the barrels made or used in the U.S. are all brand new barrels, right?
Right.
So that's why we come into play. We are recycling them, refurbishing, and then shipping them back out. So ISC, the ripple effect is, if you're not paying attention to the political environment, and you didn't empty a lot of finished, or you didn't get a lot of packaged finished goods out before these anticipated tariffs, you're shit out of luck.
Right.
Because
Wow.
now, it's like, take Canada, for example. They're not
Yeah.
even buying anything else. They
Yeah.
take it all the shell, they're not even buying it, right?
Yeah.
And so people make jokes about it like, oh, well, you already bought it. It's like, yeah, but they're not buying any more.
Right.
And they already have that. So
Right.
when they do relax these
They
tariffs,
just put it back
they're
on the
not
shelf.
going to be buying it because
Right.
they have it already
Right.
in stock, right? So, but the ripple effect. I mean, I was just chatting with somebody through email today about, hey, you know, there's a 25% tariff that the EU is implementing, and it's on barrels coming from America. I don't know if we can take them because
Right.
the price is X amount, and now we have a 25%. But you know, it's just like people complaining here about buying cars.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the issue is, you know, there's some companies out there like, oh, we're just going to eat that for you. But people think there's like a ton of margin in this sometimes, but
Yeah.
there's not.
No.
Right.
Especially when you do what we do and you do that full inspection, the
Yep.
traceability, all that stuff. There's a lot of effort that goes
Well,
into that.
you guys are relying on the constant rolling,
Yep.
the constant income,
Yep.
production, all of that, and this could put a halt on that.
Absolutely, yeah. And we just got to be smart about it. And it's tough. It's just a lot of communication and making sure that, you know, orders are still in play, but a lot of people haven't ordered yet,
Right.
Because they just wanted to see how
What would
what's
play out.
actually going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you have Nintendo. They stopped like pre-orders on their Switch because they're unsure.
Yeah.
Right, and we just don't realize how deep it goes.
Oh yeah, and it's for us. It affects us a lot, but it's just funny because a lot of people are like, oh well, they still got to produce. Well, yeah, but they can also just pivot to using like Irish whiskey barrels or Scotch
Right.
barrels or sherry, etc. You know, but there is still a component. I was having this chat with my friend last night. There's still that component and flavor profile that you get from a bourbon barrel,
Right.
and that they still need that, and that's true. But it's just willing. It's just depending on the country, right?
I can't wait to see the company that does like the tariff bottle.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
we,
Like a
we
pro-
had to-
like a
we-
prohibition
we
bottle.
had to
Yeah.
we had to reuse these
Yeah.
barrels, bro.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. It's all marketing.
Tariff
dude.
edition.
Like we were talking about earlier before this is all marketing. It's just
Yeah.
marketing. It's,
Yep.
it's how you.
Well, look what Ford did with,
Yeah.
with the cars. They'd, we're doing employee pricing for,
Right.
for everybody. It's like, yeah, because you need to get rid of your inventory.
right. Yeah. And if,
You're not doing this as a favor. You realize
They
you
have-
can't move your cars
exactly.
anymore.
Yeah.
They have
Yep.
so many cars sitting on the lot.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
exactly.
It's
so,
and you know it's just incredible to me. And again, I say it all the time, right? Like we don't truly understand the specialties there are across the board. Like I say it,
Right.
there's somebody who specializes in the mold that
Yep.
will work with polyethylene or
Whatever it is,
you know,
yeah.
whatever it is to mold this cup. There is somebody that is sitting there going, yes, okay, temperature is this.
Yeah,
right.
Like we don't recognize how deep all of these things go.
Oh, yeah, it's-
But I think that brought a level for me of even more respect
Oh,
to the
yeah.
bourbon, whiskey, the spirit industry in general, and that's kind of where I wanted to go. I'll go ahead and pour out this cognac. This is gonna be cool for me because, like I said, I don't really venture out.
Yeah.
But I'll get
Yeah,
this taste.
I can't tell you the last time I had, like when I say cognac, like Hennessy.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Like,
That's everybody
Remy
thinks
Martin,
of.
but that's you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
a different. That was a different life.
But
yeah.
like,
No, I hear you.
think
We
that what
were
it's-
all there.
Yep.
like what it's done for me, and before we started this podcast, and you could even attest, before we started, I was like, why the hell would somebody pay? Like personally, like why would me, a consumer, go, I'm gonna pay $1,500, I'm gonna pay $3,000 for this barrel? But learning that the process, the attention to detail that goes into this, if I could now sitting here, if I could then buy, like I said, I love Buffalo Trace. That's what started me, or even an Old Soul barrel. Like my last experience drinking Old Soul was, we rented a cabin for Christmas. Me and my best friends, my wife, sitting in a hot tub drinking Old Soul, looking at snow-capped covered mountains. If I could then trace all the way back to that barrel and go, damn, I want that.
Yeah.
Like that's something. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna pour this out. But can you tell me what is? And I know you don't really deal a lot in the private market, but have you seen an increase in that? And then what does that look like?
Yeah. There's a huge boom on this. Like the finance bros, the private capital folks, coming in and investing in bourbon.
Yeah.
And buying full barrels. And aging them away in hopes to then sell them later to these smaller craft brands or what we would call a non-distiller producer or a NDP. And so those would people be like Penelope Bourbon.
We've had Penelope. On the show before.
And you know, like in hopes of, I think what all their I can't speak to it, but I feel like a lot of those people that are NDPs is they obviously have a joy for the bourbon, they want to sell it, but then I think some of them their ultimate goal is to just sell it off.
Right.
To create a brand and then sell it off, but. So these finance folks came in because they literally, you can finance the liquid going into the barrel. It wasn't just the full barrel itself,
right? Or
the barrels, like the brand new barrels. You could finance. It's like the parallel is very similar to like a new car dealership, and a used car dealership,
right?
So you have ISC as the new car dealership, and then you have KBB as the used car, and you know, the new barrels are more expensive than the used traditionally, and sometimes as like the 13th distiller, whatever, or 13th spirits. They may not have the capital to invest into the volume they need, so they'll finance it.
Right.
They need the money to get going, and again, if you're going to start a distillery, it's not a short-term play.
Right.
It's a long-term. And the only way to make it a short-term play is, again, if you're not an actual distillery. Like you can have the permit, the DSP, and then source your juice from like MGP in Indiana. There's a handful of other private contractors in the space that you wouldn't even know if I named them.
Yeah.
But you know, like, and that's the thing though too. Like a lot of there's these massive distilleries that just opened up, and that's also the sad thing because like the market's changed. There's still like us that we love our bourbons, a lot of but there's a lot of people that stopped drinking.
Yeah.
There's been a reduction in the consumption space.
I was gonna say Gen Z is drinking the lowest amount of alcohol out of any generation. In history.
They're also the most boring generation.
Which is kind of weird, right? Yeah. Well, kind of weird too, because it's like they've also experienced a lot of the shit that we've been going through.
Right, exactly.
Like you know, thinking
Who
about
doesn't
it.
turn on the news and go 130 proof? Done.
Yeah. Done. Right? Yeah. I'll take a whole bottle, please. And so, but yeah, going back to the finance piece, it's like so like all these people entered the space, these private cap folks, and then invest and then. Again, like I mentioned earlier, there's some bad players in the barrel space, and there's people that will just rip you off. And there's just recently, like a BBC article I was reading about in Scotland, people selling people on this idea, like this is a good investment, and you'll see the ads on Facebook still.
Oh yeah.
And I have a few.
You can buy shares of barrels.
Yeah.
Like that's a big thing right now. Like buy a barrel for $600 a piece, and it's Buffalo Trace will age it for 7 years, and then sell it, and you'll make a profit.
Yep.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, just like stocks, it goes ups and downs.
Right.
And everybody was eager about it because there's this big boom and you see all this investment going into it. And now there's distilleries that were just built and now being mothballed. I think one of the more recent ones was Garin Distillery. Unfortunately, brand new, massive, beautiful place, but they are now closed.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you even do with that equipment after?
Right.
And then all the investment and obviously,
especially because it's so industry specific.
Right.
Like you can't repurpose much of it, right? So once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah. And so these finance guys that invest a lot in these barrels, and it's like when I go to these conferences, these American Craft Spirits Conference or American Distillers Institute, or whatever it is, these expos where it's educational but also people trying to sell their wares.
Let us know when these go on so we can.
Absolutely, you're absolutely welcome. Yeah. And that's the funny thing because before there was never really a distillery there. There weren't many people like contract producers there. It was just like the big people, the big producers, right?
Yeah.
MGP would always be there. Hey, you want to start your brand? Start with this. You could buy whatever mash bill that we have, and we'll age it for X amount, and then we'll send you the barrels, right? But now there's been such a drop off. Barrels were selling, upwards of $2,000-$3,000 a barrel, depending, especially the higher age statements.
Sure,
There's those age chasers, those taters that people like to go after. Like,
I was gonna say this one right here is 30-year-old wine, like
the cognac,
yeah.
But the bourbon itself is probably 8 or something.
Yeah.
7 or something like that.
Yeah, but even then, like an 8-year versus the 2-year bourbon has a completely different price mark, right?
Yeah.
And so people were investing in that and hoping to create, again, these brands because it was such a hot thing. And even tequila is also another one. But now the market's just gone in the shitter.
Right.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the shitter. It's just I think what happened is like what we were talking about earlier, COVID. We bought so many bottles.
Yeah. Their expectations were here.
Yeah.
and they were like, well, this is how it's been for the last 2 years.
Exactly.
You know,
And they just
it's, it's not like it's not like investing in a CD,
Right.
Where the bank's like, all right, just hold this for 5 years, we'll pay you at this percent.
Yeah.
This
You're
is
dependent on the market.
right, and the market's human beings, which
Exactly.
As
And
we
the
know
same-
in real estate.
very unpredictable.
Exactly. You guys, there's so many parallels, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is too, like you look at the craft brewing industry too. That was like kind of like the canary in the coal mine piece because there's so many craft brewers still opening, and like it's like I love craft beer. I have a lot of good buddies that work in the industry, but do I really need one on every corner?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's not one of those things that's like Starbucks. Not everybody drinks beer every day,
Right.
right?
Unless you're in North Carolina, because let me tell you, buddy.
Yeah, or Seattle.
I went back. I went back to Western North Carolina and visited. And when I tell you, I'm talking. I lived in a town of 3,200 people.
Oh.
One main street town, 4 breweries on that street.
Interesting.
4, and that
Interesting.
blew my mind.
Yeah,
Right.
It seems like
Blew my mind. And ask me how many gyms are in the town.
zero.
0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it's one of those things where it's like, again, as you see the bourbon come up, the craft beer, I fear that we're at that time where corporate money is getting involved.
Yes.
Right.
And now we're seeing it shift from the love, the appreciation to the turn and burn.
Yep.
It's
And-
to the bottom line.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that's kind of what also has affected us in the barrel industry is it's all dollars and cents. It's not really even about the relationships
Right.
anymore, and it sucks. And like again with these finance people invested money in these things, and now it is literally the dollars and cents. Like, well, I still need to produce, but I can only spend this much because nobody's buying, so I
Right.
don't have any cash flow, and so
And it's going to get even more tight
right.
moving forward.
Exactly.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's a downtime. I think what generation are we in that's not
Gen
drinking?
Z.
Gen Z. I think they'll get to our age and they're going to become a bit more calloused and they're going to want some higher proof spirit. I think you also have the rise of like Ozempic, the semaglutide stuff, the
Yeah.
injectables. That curbs people's appetites to drink. You have again.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I didn't even think that
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be on your radar.
Yeah.
That's
And then-
incredible.
And then there's
Wow.
always and there's always been a piece about marijuana, people switching to marijuana.
Yeah. Get me a bourbon that was married in some way with like a sweet strain of marijuana.
Yeah, right.
Figure out how to do that.
I guarantee you somebody's already done it.
Yeah.
We just aren't aware of it.
All right, I got to
They
look
just
it up.
what they did instead of toasting the barrel, they got the barrel toasted.
Yeah.
With
With the
the
smoke.
smoke?
Like an old smoked old fashioned. But
Oh,
you know what I'm
shit.
saying? Let it
Hell
sit
yeah.
there
Oh,
for a
check
little
we
the
need
name
to
right
get
here.
Cheech and Chong
Yes.
to invest.
Yeah,
Where are
okay.
you, Cheech? Where are you, Chong?
Yep, yep. That would be
I don't know if
awesome.
I can get ISC on board with it, like using
Hey, you know
marijuana
what? Sometimes
bud
you gotta do
Yeah.
something
to smoke and toast.
That would be
See?
crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna go buy a little 5-gallon barrel.
Yeah.
I'll
I
let
think
you know.
OSHA
I'll let you
and
know.
the DEA might have an issue
Yeah,
with
yeah,
this.
they
So-
might. We just
so-
gotta hide it in the backwoods of North Carolina.
Yes, that would be annoying. Yes.
Yeah.
We've all been kind of swirling it, but the reason that we actually have this cognac on the podcast on this episode today is because this what was it, Herschel? What was it? Hirsch.
Hirsch.
This one that we're drinking right now and sipping. This is the actual spirit that Hirsch is barreled in.
Yep.
Right. So that
Yeah.
was the cognac that was in the barrel that
Yep.
then got emptied, and then Hirsch got that cognac barrel
And put the
and
bourbon
dumped
in it.
the bourbon in
Yep.
there, finished it for 6 months or 3 years, who knows how long. I didn't read the label, but
No, but and honestly, it's really cool too because you have an insight in your position that like we wouldn't have, and we would have to go so
Sweet.
deep to find those connections.
Yeah.
It must be so cool for you to know, like, I'm going to buy this because I
Yeah.
know this is the barrel that it came from.
yeah. Well, what was actually funny is I didn't even make that, to be honest. Like, yes, there is that connection,
Yeah.
and I will do that. This was a perfect example of when I wasn't even paying attention. My best friend, when I first moved to Boston, was a liquor store manager, and he's like, "You just got to get this cognac. It's good." I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, cool, whatever. I'll take it. But I'll also take all these other bottles. And then I bought the Hirsch one later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have the Hein cognac with the Hirsch bourbon, and then to have the Hirsch. 'Cause I also have a regular Hirsch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then have this to look at the label. I'm like, oh.
It's just,
Like,
shit.
wait a
it's
second.
Hein.
There it is.
And it was just a very serendipitous
Well,
thing.
and I mean,
wonder I
even the
love
nose
this.
on this, 100%. You get, I know you took a sip of it already, Jimmo, but like you
What?
get the sweetness
Yeah.
on the nose, but I'm getting that note, that subtle cherry sweetness
Yes.
to it.
Yep.
That 100%, like I said, that's
Yeah.
what came out
Yeah.
in the bottle,
Yeah.
in the bourbon. That's incredible.
And my buddy Bryce and I, when I'd go smoke cigars, before I was even drinking bourbon, I'd always drink
Right.
cognac.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm
With
sorry.
cigars.
How the hell are Hennessy and this the same thing?
They're not. That's
They're
what I
not.
said when I said I've had cognac
Yeah.
in another life.
Jesus.
Yeah. You should
I
definitely
mixed
get
that
some
with
like.
Hypnotic and called it a green Incredible
Jesus.
Hulk.
That is
Yeah.
like honey.
Yes.
You know, remember those?
That is like honey. That's incredible.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is crazy.
Wow.
That's cognac. Cognac and I have a big love affair. My wife loves it.
No,
That's
this
awesome.
is this is
Yeah.
fantastic.
That's
So-
incredible. Like, wow.
Yeah.
might have to get some cognac.
Cognac.
on the show.
The
Wow.
Frenchies did do something right. They
love
did
that.
do something right.
I
They-
love it.
They do have a good
Well,
spirit.
one thing that we like to do when we're kind of wrapping up and coming to the end of the episode is we do something that's called a one rock takeaway. So the one rock takeaway is basically a concise kind of final thought on the episode overall.
Yeah.
And Jameson and I can start it off, and then honestly, it's going to be a little bit different for you
Yep.
because you come from the space and you were talking about it. But I'll go ahead and start off with my one rock takeaway. And
You're gonna steal mine. I can already tell.
Yep,
But go
yep,
ahead.
yep. The amount of respect that I've gotten for bourbon and barrels, just spirits in general,
Mm-hmm.
just based off this conversation and the understanding, like, this is why I think places like the Rouge are so important.
Yeah.
Your buddy mentioned it earlier. We were talking about it where you don't want to buy you want to taste it.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to buy the bottle.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important, I think, for places like the Rouge to exist where you have somebody like Chris
Yeah.
that is knowledgeable on it and is
And he
trying to
is.
give an experience.
Right.
Yep.
Right? And it just gives me a whole other level of respect for going in and doing tastings and
Yeah.
understanding. And I think now I feel a little bit more comfortable going and trying these bourbons and whiskeys that are made in different casks and different barrels
Yeah.
because there is so much affinity for it. And I can see the master distillers, these guys that are actually, even the arborists, like you said,
Yeah.
the fact that it starts there.
Yeah.
And you probably even have these companies who are hiring arborists
Oh, yeah.
to come in and go, you work for us because we like your palate, we like your eye. That right there just gives me a whole nother level of respect for the industry. And thank you so much because
yeah.
I love doing this. I love doing this podcast. But like I said, for me, I love knowing that there's specialists in every area.
Yeah.
And this just elevated the experience after bottle number 87. You know, like it added so much more value to it. So thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, just from the craftsmanship alone on the barrels, right? And the one thing that rings true for me, whenever we go really deep into any topic with an expert in that field, is the level of depth that everything does have, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, I feel like a lot of people, this is why people take things for granted
Oh yeah.
all the time, right? Because
Absolutely.
they either don't want to look below the surface, they don't have the time to look below the surface, whatever it is. So anytime that we can partner with somebody, Noah, like you, that
Yeah.
can come in and give us a deep dive into something that I would, like, yes, we know barrels and we understand their age and we get the surface level of the char, but
Right.
to the point you just made, Charlie, like having distilleries hiring arborists to plant specific trees in certain areas so
Yeah.
that in 5 years there's
Have you
this
had
on
Heaven
the
Hills
shelf.
grain to glass?
Yeah. Actually, we were gonna bring a bottle of
Yeah,
that.
I
Yeah.
totally
I have not had it yet. Actually.
Okay, so
I will have it tonight.
it's-
we
so
were blessed to drink through the line.
Okay. Very
so
good.
we had all three of their grain to glass. And do you know
There's a wheat.
There's
bourbon,
a wheat, bourbon,
and a rye.
and a
right?
rye. Yep.
Yep.
And do you know like the background of it, like what they do?
No.
So they actually, well, so here,
should.
just to give you a little bit like
Give
deeper
my-
level on it,
yeah.
they actually partner with the top agricultural
Okay.
research firm.
Yes.
And they deal with them specifically to hand pick based on the chemical
they
makeup,
cross pollinate their grains.
based
They got
on the chemical makeup of the grain.
Yeah.
That's how they source for those bottles. And I will tell you, like we were talking earlier, you can tell the complexity and the
Oh,
love
yeah.
that goes into it
Yes.
because from the second that we poured it to the back end, it sat for an hour and 20 minutes. The level of evolution through
Yeah.
those bottles
It
was
was
incredible.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I look forward to having it tonight. Hopefully, I have it without a cigar, so I can
Yeah.
Yes.
so I can actually taste that.
Right.
But that's amazing. Yeah, and that's why I also love, like, again, it's all about the ingredients. The ingredients matter. Let it be your food. Let it be booze. But again, it's not like you said, Hennessy or Hypnotic.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, so you're not. This isn't something that you're just shooting.
Right.
It's a passion.
And it's a passion. It's
Yeah.
it's a comprehension, understanding, and I think a lot of people, it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I just barely touched the surface on.
Yeah,
what-
oh no, it's funny because
You
we're
could
sitting
tell,
here
yeah.
talking and I'm
Yeah.
like,
I can think
damn
of
it,
47
I need you
other
to come
questions.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I need you to come back
I'm
at
happy
least
to come back.
Like
I'm
once a
happy
month,
to come
like-
back and bring a whole new
Yeah.
lineup of
anytime,
whatever.
anytime you're in Colorado, man.
Yeah, seriously.
absolutely.
Seriously,
I'll
this
clear
is
out whatever,
incredible.
Whatever guests we have.
Or
we'll
even
clear.
if,
like,
like I said,
bro,
let
Noah's
us
in town.
you
Can't-
let us
can't do
know.
it.
We'll come to you because
Or
this is the
we can do it
amount
in
of
Kentucky
information.
at the
Yes.
barrel at the cooperage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
that would be awesome.
I would
That would be
100%
awesome.
do that because
Yeah.
this is just the amount of knowledge, the depth that goes into this.
crazy, dude.
You would never
It's
know
crazy.
unless. And okay, so let me ask. At ISC, right? So
Yeah.
your ISC is parent,
Parent, yep.
and then you're in. So
Yep.
in your company, how many people do what you do?
So I would say 3. It's myself and my boss and Mark Quick over in Ireland. We're actively like account managers selling stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And communicating with the producers. But beneath us, the people that are really the people that are carrying us on their backs is the coopers, the barrel folks, the warehouse staff, the crew members. Without them, we wouldn't
Right.
like we couldn't do what we do because or spend the time what we do with our clients or our customers because they're the ones that they make it happen, right?
Yep.
Like they're the ones unloading the trailers, they're the ones loading it, they're the ones inspecting, testing, doing the repairs, like
Refurbishing, which
Exactly.
still blows my mind. That
Yeah,
that's a thing. That's
they're literally
Yeah.
deconstructing and
that was
reconstructing.
that was
That's
the coolest part of
incredible.
for
really
me.
just a recycler, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's incredible.
that was the coolest part. Like I'm just imagining just this warehouse. I'm like, God, I need
I need an
3-year
A-body
chair,
here.
an 8-year chair,
Yeah.
This, I mean, nuts.
I-
dude.
That's so cool.
I
Absolutely
just I can't ever express my appreciation for them enough, and it's just tough because they're just hard workers. They
Yeah.
do what they do, and they love it. It sucks when it's summertime or when it's super cold in winter because it's just this massive.
Oh, it's like
And
sweatshop.
we try to climate control as best we can, and it is kind of cavernous in there, so it is fairly consistent. But it's still the barrels weigh after they get emptied.
just rolling this over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean they're 120 pounds after
Yeah.
empty, 125 sometimes. So
Wow.
they bust their ass and
Yeah.
they do
I
the
love
job.
it.
And even the guys at the brand new cooperage, like they do produce a lot of barrels and there is a lot of like engineering in it, but there's still a craft and a technique to it.
Yep.
And the numbers that they put up is just impressive because if they did not exist, bourbon would not be where it's at.
Right.
I mean, it just wouldn't be. Like it
Right.
would be
Yeah.
such a rare thing to have given the populations
Yeah.
we have,
I love it. All right, so normally what we do is before we sign off, we kind of cheers it. So I wanted to ask you guys, which one would you like to have poured out for the cheers for the end of the
Ooh.
episode?
Ah,
Is it sacrilege to go with the cognac?
I mean,
I kind of like the cognac.
Yeah,
Just
we're
the-
doing
cheers,
it.
Are we
man.
do it.
we're talking about bourbon and we're finishing
Yeah,
with
I, think,
cognac?
I feel like we have to give the French some credit.
Yeah.
as somebody,
because
like I
well,
said, I don't drink
let's-
cognac.
Let's
because
bring it way back.
I tasted Hennessy and I
Bourbon.
was like,
Bourbon.
It's French.
Ah.
Bourbon is French.
They're the ones who coined
Yep.
the term
wow.
Bourbon.
So there we
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Oui, oui.
Oui, oui.
Garçon.
I love it. No, this is and for all the viewers, please leave us a comment, a like, whatever but let us know. Do you like stuff like this? Because this is something that we're really focused on.
Oh, so
for
we
you.
really don't care. We're gonna do it.
Well, I'm saying moving forward, we want to have and give you insights
Yeah.
that we wouldn't have regularly. Because like I said, what I learned, the respect that I gained, it only happens when you have a specialist in the
Yeah,
area
dude, it's been
that you're talking to.
Invaluable.
Thanks
Yeah.
for listening.
Absolutely
I feel like I
valuable.
just ramble sometimes.
No,
so.
no. This
I
was-
learned so much.
Seriously,
think,
like I
yeah.
can't tell you.
So awesome.
I hope I hope like with this episode, I would send this to every single bourbon Facebook channel, everything, because nobody understands this level.
Right.
I
Yeah, I
guarantee
agree.
you,
They don't.
I would say 98% of the people that walk in here to try bourbon, if I told them about this and told
Yeah.
them, hey, did you know that there's a company that will take a barrel apart and rebuild it based on the specifications? They'd be like, what are you talking
Right.
about? That doesn't happen. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it does.
No, it
Yeah.
does.
It does. And on that note, guys, remember, you could reach out to us at any point in time,
Yep.
resotr@themilehighperspective.com, or give us a phone call or a ring.
720-584-3361
You can find us on our own personal socials, at Charlie Sardelli.
and the Colorado Real Estate Guy.
Oscar is at Oscar the Realtor. You can also find him there. Sorry, Oscar, you missed out another one, but
Dude, yeah. Picking the wrong
Just stop.
days to work.
you know, you're doing real estate. We're drinking bourbon.
Yeah.
I love it. But on that note, is there anywhere so as kind of like a last call out? Is there anything that you'd want viewers to know, to hear, or a place to go look? Where do you recommend that they learn it? Anything like that?
If you're ever in Kentucky, obviously that's the heart of bourbon. You can go visit ISC, do a cooperage tour with them. We do have a KBB service center next to the brand new barrel cooperage. You can also, and that's incorporated into the tour, and you can actually see with your own eyeballs how these are made in the 21st century.
So cool.
And you're also welcome to come visit our used barrel cooperage in Louisville, Kentucky. So if you ever make that travel, you're always welcome. But also, like,
It's right off.
yeah, exactly.
All I'm saying is,
Yeah.
like,
But,
Jensen and I might have to take a trip.
Yeah, but it's just, I guess if I need to plug a website, it'd be www.iscbarrels.com or super generic, easy to remember, www.KentuckyBourbonBarrel.com. You'll see my ugly mug on there, and it has my contact information. You can always reach out to me. If you want to shoot the shit, just make sure you mention these guys, and that way I just don't ignore you.
And we'll put that information down in the description of the video for you, whether it's the audio or the video version.
Yep.
We'll put that in there for you,
We'll
so
give the link
you can
too.
reach out. Yep. Give the link to the website, all of that kind of stuff. But on that note, guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I thank
This
you
was
guys.
incredible.
I appreciate you guys.
It's awesome.
This was
That's
incredible. On that
lucky.
note, we'll catch you guys on the next
Yes, sir.
episode. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, gentlemen.